Joe Biden drops out of the presidential race. It could take weeks or months to fully recover from Friday's massive IT outage and the changing demographics of Australia over the last century. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Monday, the 22nd of July, 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael. Did you enjoy your break?
I had a great break. Thank you. And a very big thank you to Julian King for holding the fort. I was supposed to have 2 weeks off, actually, but I got too many comments from my family about how well Julian was going. And look, here I am, back a week early.
Well, you know, suddenly you pop up on a Monday morning. I thought you were having another week off. There you go.
No. Always planned just 1 week. I'm back. And Julian really, though, did a fantastic job. So thank you very much to him for filling in. But anyway, Sean, we have plenty to get through this morning and a big story to kick us off today. After intense pressure from within his own party, President Joe Biden has said he is ending his campaign and backing Vice President Kamala Harris to run in his place.
Ms. Harris immediately spoke. She said she'd seek the nomination, adding, "Together we will fight and together we will win." The 81-year-old Mr. Biden has not recovered from his disastrous debate with Donald Trump. Eventually, he caved to relentless pressure from his closest allies to drop out of the race amid deep concerns that he's too old and frail to defeat Mr. Trump, according to the New York Times. After calling Vice President Kamala Harris an extraordinary partner, he endorsed her to take his place atop the ticket. It's been, and I'm quoting Joe Biden here, Michael, "It's been the greatest honour of my life to serve as your president." This is on social media. "And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus entirely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term," end quote. A very, very gracious comment on X.
Sean, this was really a case of kind of not if, but when it would happen. What was the reaction like, particularly, I suppose, Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump immediately telephoned CNN, like we're talking minutes after the announcement, and he said that he was the single worst president in history. Where
Savage?
Where Joe Biden showed grace, Donald Trump did not. He also posted a pretty extraordinary rant on social media. It's a bit typical, I suppose, nowadays, but he absolutely hooked into Joe Biden. He called him not fit to run and not fit to serve, which was extremely harsh, I think. His running mate, J.D. Vance from Ohio, he wrote on X that President Trump and I are ready to save America, whoever's at the top of the Democrat ticket. If we turn to the Democrats, former President Barack Obama was pretty vocal over the last few hours. He called Biden, who of course is his former vice president, one of America's most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and partner to me. The leaders of the UK, Germany and Canada have been out saying, congratulating Joe Biden on his years and his announcement. Kamala Harris still needs to be endorsed. Not every single politician is behind her, it seems. Some states seem to be a bit lukewarm about Kamala Harris, but I'm sure that will evolve over the next few days. Already, the Republicans, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's party, have got attack ads ready to go against Kamala Harris. Now, in terms of polling, there have been polls done Trump v. Harris. She is slightly behind Trump, though in a better position than what Biden was. So, Michael, this really changes the whole political landscape in the US, and it's going to be a really, really interesting few days, all the way through to the election in November.
Yeah, Sean, the extraordinary sideshow of US politics continues. Let's turn our attention back home now. Local markets, how did they finish up on Friday?
Well, S&P ASX 200, it closed down nearly 1% to 7,972 points, meaning for the week, the bourse was flat, up about 13 points, I think. Mind you, of course, it was quite the week because during last week, the benchmark hit both a new intraday high and a new closing high. On Friday, the big miners led the way down, but there were some decent falls among the real estate, utilities and financials stocks. A few retailers came out on Friday, flagged earnings changes. Jewellery store operator Michael Hill blamed poor economic conditions for a squeeze in margins and weak revenue growth. Adore Beauty said sales are up about 7% for the last financial year. Universal Stores also flagged better than expected results. All those report their full year earnings next month.
And you've got a terrific interview coming up after the show with one of our favourite guests, Dr. Shane Oliver, Head of Investment and Strategy at AMP.
Yeah, we're not talking economics here. We are talking investing. And we asked Shane what he thinks will happen to the ASX 200, just given where it's at now, valuations, it is relatively highly priced. What about the US election? How does that play into it? So we have a great chat to Shane about where he thinks the market will go.
Yeah, always worth a listen to Shane Oliver. He's coming up after the show, so stick around for that one. Now, on to international markets. Thanks to Blue Chip Communications, the experts helping financial services companies market, communicate and grow. Visit bluechipcommunication.com.au. How did markets finish over the weekend, Sean?
Lower. In fact, it was a pretty rough week around the globe. Wall Street was down 2%. Eurozone shares fell 3.4%. The Japanese market lost more than 5%. Now, China's market was actually up 2%, notwithstanding the third plenum held last week disappointed everyone with very little in terms of new stimulus. Still, that market rose. Plenty going on, really. June quarter earnings season is getting busy. Profits are tipped to be strong. We also have falling inflation and central banks talking about rate cuts, though, of course, not the Reserve Bank of Australia. So they should all help equities. However, a recession remains a real risk, and there's plenty of geopolitical uncertainty, not least around the US election. Late last week, the IMF upgraded its growth forecast. It said global growth could be slightly stronger than it had previously anticipated. In terms of the numbers, Michael, oil's lower with a barrel of Brent costing around $82.50. That's US, of course. Gold's dropped back to under $2,400 US dollars an ounce. Bitcoin's trading just over 67,000 US dollars a unit. And Michael, you missed an enormous amount of excitement last week with the Aussie dollar.
Oh.
No doubt about it.
Go on.
While you were away, we got as high as 67.48 cents. Crazy stuff. Of course, now you're back. It's fetching just under 67 US cents, but just for a few brief days there. There was a lot of excitement in the studio about it.
Did you sleep at all during that period? Because I know you get very worked up about the Aussie dollar.
I kept waking up, checking my phone. How's it going? I think I can.
Yeah,
no, I can't.
Then it just rises ever so slightly, and they're like, I can't sleep for hours now. Just the thrill of it all, Sean. Speaking of thrills, even though I was away last week, you know what I still did? I still read the Fear and Greed newsletter when it came out on Wednesday morning.
And you found it thrilling?
I did. I genuinely enjoy because the newsletter, while this show is all about the news throughout the week, and then the newsletter is your views on it. And so I really like them because I wasn't here to kind of talk to you and get your thoughts, your private kind of innermost thoughts, which sounds kind of creepy, on all of these stories. I relied on the newsletter for it last week and I thought it was great. So if you haven't signed up already, head along to fearandgreed.com.au, pop your email address in. It'll come out mid-morning on Wednesday. So do it now before you forget. And you too will be privy to Sean's innermost thoughts on a whole range of topics.
Not everything. Just a range of topics. Let's leave it there.
Just a range of topics. Strictly business, Sean.
Strictly business, Michael.
Indeed. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Westpac has received a tick of approval from the regulator over its efforts to improve its risk management and governance since its 2019 money laundering scandal.
It's been a while coming, this one. The Australian Prudential Regulation Authority said it will cut in half its $1 billion capital penalty on the bank. The capital add-on, which requires the bank to hold more funds in reserve to accommodate for inadequate risk management, represented two separate actions from APRA. Its removal, the $500 million removal, frees up money to be used elsewhere. The first $500 million impost arrived in July 2019 as part of a crackdown on all the major banks for flouting self-assessments. APRA applied another $500 million to Westpac the next year after Austrac levelled a $1.3 billion fine against it for, remember that, 23 million breaches of anti-money laundering laws. Chief Executive Peter King said Westpac's now a simpler, stronger bank with substantially improved risk governance.
Now, I know we all have a good statistic here on Fear and Greed. This one is definitely one for the demographers among us. This is great. 9 in 10 Australians now live in cities and towns, and over the last 100 years or so, fertility rates have halved. And Sean, a bit of good news, life expectancy has jumped by 26 years.
Yeah, these are some of the findings from an Australian Bureau of Statistics report that looks at historical population figures for as long as they have the data. There are plenty of interesting facts and figures. Australia's population in 2021, that's when the last census was done, was 25.7 million, 7 times larger than in 1901 when the nation had just 3.8 million people. Now, the population has grown every year since 1901, excluding World War I, with the highest net increase coming in 2009. Over the past 100 years, the median age has gone from 22.5 years to 38.4 years. We're getting older. Females have outnumbered males since 1978. Workers to non-workers, which is basically under 50-year-olds plus 65-year-olds compared to the rest, is lower today than it was a century ago. And as you said, 9 in 10 people now live in cities and towns. It was about 2/3 that level back in the early 1900s.
Are you a little bit curious as to why there was such a big spike in our population in 2009? I'm assuming it was a immigration kind of thing. Or did Barry White put out a new song in 2008 or something like that?
Something like that?
I don't know, the first season of Bridgerton launched or something. All of a sudden, boom!
Maybe. So you think Barry White, Bridgerton, I'm thinking, well, it's GFC. Maybe people didn't have jobs and had to stay at home.
Looking for cheap entertainment, Sean.
Yeah, that's the different ways you and I think.
Oh, goodness me. Bet you've missed me, haven't you?
Yeah, totally. So's the show. It really has.
Let's move on. Lifestyle Communities share price tumbled 14% on Friday after it withdrew forward guidance, blaming interest rate rises, high inflation, ongoing insolvencies in the building sector, and the media.
Yeah. Lifestyle develops, owns and manages affordable independent living communities. Over the past week, the ABC has alleged the company is gouging residents with unfair fees, and 80 homeowners in a community had lodged claims in the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. The company late last week rejected the allegations. They've done that a couple of times, said the media coverage was actually incomplete, didn't take into account some of the entry fees. Rather, it just looked at the exit fees. That hasn't helped Lifestyle. Its share price since those media reports is down 24%.
That's pretty big. Now, Sean, turning to international news, it could take weeks to recover from the IT outage on Friday, which some experts say is the biggest ever after a bug broke 8.5 million Windows PCs.
Did you know Australia was one of the hardest hit? Because when it happened, it was middle of the day on Friday. And of course, we were all awake working, along with the New Zealanders, I suppose, and some of the Asian countries. Anyway, it hit us harder than most other countries. The US also got hit pretty hard, but interesting little fact.
Oh, because the update to the software would have been rolled out in the middle of the night in the US, and of course that just hits us right in prime working hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great.
A faulty software update from CrowdStrike, a company which is basically trusted to secure systems around the world, triggered the massive global disruption. CrowdStrike is one of the world's biggest security vendors, and it blamed an update on its Falcon software for the bug that basically grounded planes, it disrupted hospital services, interrupted financial service transactions, took media off the air. Quite phenomenal. Microsoft said that while the percentage of Windows users directly hit was small, about 1%, the broad economic and societal impact reflects the use of CrowdStrike by enterprises that run many critical services. The fix is for users affected by the blue screen of death to reboot their computers and manually delete CrowdStrike's failed file update. That means hands-on access to devices. We are talking about millions, 8.5 million Windows PCs. So each of those has to individually be upgraded. That's why it's going to take weeks or months to fix the problem.
It's such a big job. And there's an Australian that is really involved in this. The president, I think, of CrowdStrike is an Australian named Michael Santonis, and we've spoken to him twice on Fear and Greed while he was still based here in Australia, in Melbourne, I think, from memory, when he was the CTO for CrowdStrike, and since he's been promoted to president, and he's right in the middle of this, trying to fix it all.
Very busy at the moment, Michael.
Yes, a tad busy. Sean, a crackdown on password sharing, a push into advertising, and a strong viewing lineup has helped Netflix push its quarterly profit up 44%. That is well above expectations.
You've always been grumpy about this, the whole password sharing thing. However, I'm on Netflix's side on this one.
Oh, I'm not grumpy about it. Netflix used to promote the fact that they were quite happy for people to share passwords. They tweeted about it, and then all of a sudden they just changed their mind. And
now they're not.
It took a little bit of adjusting.
The streaming service added 8 million subscribers globally in the 3 months to the end of June. Now has nearly 278 million subscribers. pretty phenomenal. It's 37% higher than a year ago. Netflix's share price is up more than 30% this year. Since mid-2022, Netflix has been blocking the previously widespread practice of sharing subscriber passwords with family and friends. It also introduced commercials for the first time as part of a low-priced version of its service. Since those moves began rolling out, Netflix has picked up nearly 55 million more paying customers.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, there you go. I've never cheated it, to be honest.
No, well, I'm one of the new ones, one of the disgruntled people forced onto their own account, but please go on.
Netflix has also been cutting back spending on movies and series. I mean, it's had some huge, Bridgerton, you've mentioned that already in the show. That was one of the big ones over the last 12 months, but they've actually saved money there, and that's why their quarterly profit's up 44%.
An anti-aging drug that could help people live longer and healthier lives is on the horizon after scientists extended lifespans in mammals by 25%. Wow.
London's Imperial College discovered that switching off a protein called interleukin-11 prevented cancer, boosted vision and hearing, and improved metabolism, lung health, and muscle function in middle-aged mice. It may even prevent hair loss and greying, according to a report in the Daily Telegraph of London. The treated mice also lived for an average of 155 weeks, compared with 120 weeks in untreated mice. The treated mice had stronger muscles, better lungs, skin, hearing, and vision than their untreated counterparts, and were freer from the usual signs of aging and frailty, i.e., grey hair. Professor Stuart Cook from the Medical Research Council Laboratory of Medical Science at Imperial said, and I quote, and I think it's important that we keep this in mind, while these findings are only in mice, it raises the tantalising possibility that the drugs could have a similar effect in elderly humans. There you go, Michael.
I'm just fascinated by the concept of middle-aged mice. Like, how do they tell which ones are the middle-aged? Like the young mice are all at a mouse rave, and the middle-aged mice are the ones happy to stay in and watch the bill.
Oh, we've missed you, Michael. We've missed you.
Sean, up next is Fear and Greed, the week ahead, featuring our resident economist, Stephen Koukoulas. Big week this week?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how to answer that. Oh, I've pre-warned you on that particular comment ahead of the show. No, not a lot going on, to be honest. We had the employment figures out last week, kind of something for everyone in those. There was a unemployment rate jump, but so too did jobs. So we talk about that a bit. We talk about what's going on overseas. And even though there's not a huge amount of economic data out this week, he's still very excited. He did a great job, I've got to tell you. He was our judge on the weekend edition, Michael. And notwithstanding 2 of the 4 criteria, like in 2 of the 4 slots, he gave the wrong result. He did do a good job, though.
As in ruled against you, I'm assuming.
Well, as it turns out, that is the case. Actually, one of them, I've got to say, the CFMEU story from last week, Adam put that forward, and I can't really complain about losing that one. That's a great story. The other story, Adam was talking about horoscopes on Channel 7 News, and I was talking about tens of millions of dollars going to dinosaurs, and Stephen somehow went for the horoscopes.
Oh, it's just unpredictable.
Very unpredictable.
I'm going to have to go back and have a listen to that one, because the weekend edition is always good fun. And it's especially good fun when you're not part of it and all of a sudden you aren't being sledged by your...
Oh, no. I sledged you still. It's okay.
Oh, thanks. All right, okay. I will now have to go and listen to that one. And also, of course, Shane Oliver comes up after the week ahead as well.
All about what he thinks is going to happen to the ASX 200 over the next 12 months or so.
Plenty of good listening in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au, which is where you can sign up for the Fear and Greed newsletter out on Wednesday. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Monday, the 22nd of July, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.